Welcome to our next episode. This is episode 5, and we're beginning to do the month of November. We'll start with November 6th of 1995, and we'll start with WCW. And as always, we will start with our Pepe outfit of the week, and he is dressed as a clown this week.
Oh, nice.
But the first match for Nitro will be Cobra versus the Giant.
Cobra versus Giant. I like what Giant comes out with the title and he claims it's a title defense, but he's not really champion.
And of course, as expected, this is a quick squash match. Giant wins with a choke slam. The only thing I have noted here is that Cobra, I think I mentioned it in the last episode, but he has one of the worst entrance music I've ever heard in my life.
I honestly don't like what they brought this guy in and had him feud with Craig Pittman, and then I don't understand the point of even having him.
Where I'm at, Jacob, I just watched the last episode of Superstars in August of 1996, and they were tag teaming together. So
him and Pittman.
Yeah. So another thing with Nitro this week is that they are doing kind of I think they call it the call your shot. But essentially what you do is you call in and you vote for what you want to see. So after this match, we have a backstage segment with Mean Gene, and he's with different wrestlers like Scott Norton, Shark, Diamond Dallas plays Flair. And he's just saying, pay for what you want to see. And we all know what the vote is going to be. The vote is to be who is Sting's opponent. If you watched the last episode, you know Sting's current feud is with Flair, and Flair is one of the participants in this thing. So I wonder who's going to get the call. I'll let you take this next one for Nitro. It's with Macho Man and Hulk Hogan with the homeless guy.
Oh my God. Yeah, this segment is so weird. They were trying to sell it as Hogan and Savage are like absolute, like they're so set on being bad that they're just down with the dirt and of the world instead of with the homeless people. It's so bad. And then like Savage tells Hogan he's like too emotionally involved, but then they like talk about how they need to be bad. It's bad. It's bad. Honestly, I should rewatch it so I can nitpick it some more, but I can't remember exactly what they said.
We talked about that segment from WCW quite some time. It is definitely a very weird segment.
I can think off the top of my head that's worse, but we haven't seen it yet because I think it's in '97 with Roddy Piper, and it's one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. You're going to be like, what? WTF is this?
It's not the worst thing we've seen. I think starting December and January, we may have something that tops this on the WWF side.
Yeah. I will give Hogan one compliment when we get to it because it's hilarious, but it's not really a compliment. It's only funny because of how bad he did it. 95 Hogan is awful.
And yes, I do agree. 95 Hogan is terrible. And also 95 Shawn Michaels is terrible too. Actually, well, I guess it'd be more 96. So we'll go to Raw side. The announcers this week are Vince McMahon and Doc Hendricks because Jerry the King Lawler has a match tonight. But the first match of the night is the British Bulldog with Jim Cornette versus Marty Jannetty. Jannetty gets more offense than we care to have him have in a match because we really don't care for him. But there were segments of the fan base that did care for him, whatever reason that is. But during the match, Clarence Mason comes out and says he found a clause in the British Bulldog's contract that allows for him to be the opponent at the next In Your House pay-per-view. The Bulldog will face the winner of Bret Hart versus Diesel.
And then Cornette goes on to complain about the Wild Card Survivor Series match because of you have people that don't like each other teaming up, so he just rants and raves about that.
Yeah, a lot of the Survivor Series stuff coming out is like having enemies team up with each other and seeing what happens.
And then they just build it as Wild Card.
But the finish to this match was the British Bulldog hit the running power slam for the win. The Bulldog wins, so at least we got the better winner there. Which
should have been a squash match, in my opinion.
Yeah, especially when they're building up Bulldog to be this challenger for the titles.
How does Bulldog look good giving Marty Jannetty that much offense?
Right, exactly. But at least they got the right winner. After this match, there is a Bill Clinton impersonator, and he says the WWF is one of America's finest exports, and he will be at Survivor Series. Oh, we get the president.
They got their money's worth out of this guy because he appears a lot.
And then you already addressed the Cornette segment that came after this. But again, you're right. He says he does warn Shawn Michaels that if he double-crosses Bulldog at Survivor Series, he will make Syracuse look like a walk in the park.
Got him.
What he's referencing is Shawn Michaels getting beat up by the 9, 10, 50-plus Marines.
Last I checked, it was 55.
55, okay. But that's the latest count. All right, so we will go back to WCW. Their second match of the night will be the Taskmaster with Jimmy Hart versus Renegade. And this was a short match that the crowd did not care about. The Taskmaster wins. But the most notable thing here is after the match, Jimmy Hart throws beer in Renegade's face and wipes off his face paint and telling him he's not the Renegade anymore. He's just Rick.
I want to go over,
go ahead.
Since this was Kevin Sullivan, can we talk about how bad his finish is with the stomp?
Yeah, the stomp is objectively a horrendous finish.
At least Finn Balor comes from the top rope, so it's conceivable.
Yeah.
But like Kevin Sullivan, it's just he jumps on him, double stomp.
I know Kevin Sullivan has those thick thighs, but come on, the stomp it's just not good. It's not impressive looking.
But I will say this time he does to beat the Renegade. He went to the middle rope and did a stomp. So that I thought he should have kept doing that.
Yeah, and if you're going to do a stomp, I mean, make it like a stomp to the head or something. I don't know. Anyways, after the match, we have another call to shot segment, and Flair gets on the mic and says he wants to face Sting. So I wonder if he's going to get his wish. Then on the WWF side, we have a recap of Bam Bam Bigelow on Superstars, where he confronted Goldust, and a match between Goldust and Bam Bam Bigelow is announced for Survivor Series. That's
a match that like you wouldn't think happened. Bam Bam Bigelow versus Goldust.
Bam Bam, he's on his way out here, so it's. Yeah. I don't know if this is his last match or not, but it might be.
I don't think I've seen him at least on Raw or anything post this match.
Yeah, I think this might be it. But the match that's next for WWF is Henry Godwinn versus Terry Richards, who, in case anyone doesn't know, is a young Rhino from ECW and then WWE.
He looks so weird here, knowing that it's Rhino, and obviously he's like clean-shaven kid.
Yeah.
And his body proportions, obviously, even here, is weird.
He has a unique frame, let's just say.
Being called Rhino was perfect for him.
Yeah, a T-Rex is more apt to me with his arm length. But Godwinn wins this as a squash match. He wins with a slop drop. But after the match, Hunter Hearst Helmsley hits Godwinn from behind and pedigrees him outside of the ring. And then Triple H puts gloves on because he doesn't want to touch the slop bucket with his hands.
You can't sully yourself by actually touching that slop.
And then he dumps the bucket on Godwinn. So it's just funny seeing Triple H being this, prim and proper guy, putting on gloves and everything. But yeah, he does that to continue their feud. And then they also promote another match for Survivor Series, the Dark Side versus the Royals. Whereas Undertaker, Fatu, Henry Godwinn, and Savio Vega, which I believe those are the members of his friend group called BSK, right? Yes. Is that what they're called? Bone Street Killers?
Bone Street Crew.
Against Mabel, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, Isaac Yankem, and Jerry Lawler. And if you look at those four, besides Undertaker and Triple H, this is a very unimpressive lineup for both teams.
Yeah.
I do like Fatu when he becomes Rikishi, but not as Fatu. But then Undertaker has a quick little video where he says, no Royal will survive Survivor Series and they will all rest in peace. But notable thing is Undertaker does not show his face because, again, he's going to be wearing a mask coming up and has a broken orbital bone and other stuff in his face. So we're waiting for the big reveal to be at Survivor Series. For WCW, the next match they have is Chris Benoit versus Eddie Guerrero. During this match, Sonny Ono and Jushin's Thunder Liger are shown. They're starting to build up the Starrcade thing where the WCW wrestlers go against the New Japan wrestlers. And Eddie Guerrero wins this match with a reversal, but the ref did not see Benoit's foot on the ropes. Yep. So it looks like we may run this one back.
When Eddie and Benoit are in the ring, that's always going to be pretty good. But it's not as good as the first one.
After this match, we have yet another You Call the Shots segment backstage, and Sting this time says he wants Flair to be the choice because he hates Flair.
I just love how they're like billing it as the call your shot, but they're like so heavy-handed and like, okay, we're just.
Well, here's your options. You have Sting versus Flair. Okay, that sounds good, right? Then you have Sting. You could choose Sting for Scott Norton. Nah, not really. Sting for Shark. Heck no. Sting versus DDP. Not yet. He's not the fan favorite yet, so you can't really do that one. And then Sting versus Big Bubba. Nah, it's clearly Flair, and that's what they wanted. So, and who even knows if they actually counted votes?
Yeah.
Then for WWF, we have a quick little Diesel video where he essentially just says he doesn't like Bret Hart's odds against him at Survivor Series. And then we have our next match, which is Kama Mustafa with Ted DiBiase versus a jobber named Tony Roy.
Tony Roy.
Kyle Mustafa wins, but during the match, there's a Shawn Michaels phone interview where he says he is feeling much better, and he says he is impressed with Ahmed Johnson, who, if you remember, he scoop slammed Yokozuna the week prior, and says he's happy that Ahmed Johnson is on his team, but he does not trust Psycho Sid, and says, who knows, we might see him get beat up by 9 guys again at Survivor Series. And bad luck might as well be his middle name, and the odds are against him, but he will knock them down. Shawn Michaels promos at this point are not very great.
No.
Yeah, that's that.
But it was funny, it's like they have this, but like, you know, up until the time I watched, Kama has made only like a few more appearances. So this is like pointless because it's not like they're pushing Kama.
No, they're not. But now we are at our main events for both shows. Sting comes out, and wouldn't you know it, Sting's opponent for tonight is Ric Flair. Wow. Remember, they're feuding because Ric Flair turned on Sting, which we all saw coming because they wanted to reform the Four Horsemen. So Sting is very upset with Flair. Sting wins with the Scorpion Deathlock, but he will not let go of it, which causes wrestlers from the back to come in and try to get Sting off of Flair. Sting is holding the Scorpion Deathlock in for a long time. He does eventually let go, but then he's like, you know what? I'm not done with this guy. He's like, you know what? This guy, I'm not done with him yet. He slaps the Scorpion Deathlock back on Flair, and Lex Luger comes out and talks to Sting calmly, and Sting does eventually let go of Flair, and then Sting and Luger leave as the announcers say, what did Luger say to Sting to get off of Flair? Is Sting part of the dungeon, maybe? We'll see. And then to wrap up the show, we do have a Mean Gene interview with the Taskmaster and the Giant. Jimmy Hart says Hogan is dumb, and to show how dumb he is, he says, while Hogan was making B-grade movies in Hollywood that end up in the video store before the silver screen, Jimmy Hart was taking care of business. Jimmy Hart says he has the power of attorney to sign Hogan's contracts, and he added in the stipulation that if Hulk Hogan got DQ'd, he would lose the WCW championship, which means the Giant is the champion.
The combo the way of not, so Hogan doesn't get pinned.
Right, exactly. Mean Gene, he wasn't having it. He brings out WCW's lawyer, and he says Jimmy Hart is partially correct. He says, while Jimmy Hart does have the power of attorney, the Giant is not the champion. And Commissioner Nick Bockwinkel states that due to the dubious nature of the disqualification, the competition committee has decided that the title will be decided at World War III in a battle royal. And then the Giant has to give the belt back to the lawyer. And of course, the Dungeon of Doom is furious. Eventually, he does give it back to him. And then the Taskmaster essentially says, that's fine. We're going to win the Battle Royal at World War III because nobody can beat the Giant. And that's how the show ends. Then we go to the main event of Raw, which was Jerry Lawler and Isaac Yankem versus Bret Hart and Hakushi. Finish to this match, Jerry Lawler and Isaac Yankem win by disqualification. Yeah. So what happens is that Bret Hart has Isaac Yankem in the sharpshooter, and the King goes to hit Bret Hart with a chair, but Barry Horowitz comes out and grabs the chair, and the ref DQs Hart and Hakushi because he thinks Horowitz was coming in to assist them. Yeah, not a great main event for them.
It's just so weird why they didn't give Bret Hart the win, because like Lawler doesn't really do anything with it. Obviously Yankem doesn't, and it didn't really lead, at least I didn't see it on Raw, play out on Raw, maybe on Superstore, but I don't know if it led to any friction between Hakushi and Horowitz. I have no idea.
Yeah, for the main event of the show to feature 3 people that are really not having main event characters or storylines, not really great TV. The only person in here who's relevant at this point is Bret Hart. As a wrestler, it's Bret Hart. King, of course, is a fantastic commentator at this point. But Isaac Yankem and Hakushi themselves, and then Jerry Lawler as a wrestler, just not doing it. So this week was a clear WCW victory.
Yes. Absolutely. Like this show, I mean, Bulldog versus Jannetty, which went longer than it should, then 2 squash matches, and then this match, not a chance.
Yeah, this was a poor Raw. If I had to rate it out of 5, probably like a 1 out of 5.
Yeah, it's awful. Nah, I'll give it a 2 because we got some 1s coming up.
That are even worse. Oh boy.
So let's get to the ratings. The ratings is Raw wins 2.6, Nitro's 2.
Wow.
So they got an awful show, but they still won the ratings.
That's something. Sorry, I disagree. So let's move on to November 13th of 1995. And again, we'll start with WCW and then Pepe's outfit of the week. This week, he is a super dog.
Nice.
And then, oh, great. We have this. Okay, you're going to love this one. So
you get one of the worst. You get this Hulk Hogan promo of him within the Dungeon of Doom, which is very famous. This is a very famous video or promo because of how awful it is.
Yep.
Hogan is dressed as an executioner, and he holds up a sword. He has a half-black mask. He says the Macho Man will bring him the head of Ming. I'm like, so he's talking about killing people. Hogan says he feels a strange presence after what happened with Sting and Luger. He doesn't know where Sting's head's at. And then he says, Macho Man, move fast, move swift, and bring him the head of Ming on a silver platter, brother. Awful. Yep. Absolutely atrocious.
He's feuding with the Dungeon of Doom. He also says the Dungeon of Doom is shaking in fear of Hulkamania because Hogan is walking around with the training, the vitamins, because they are immortal. And now his brother of the road, Macho Man, like you said, will bring him the head of Ming. So bad.
So cheesy.
He does say that him and Macho Man have a hit list, and they will continue down the hit list. And also, he will look Sting in the eye tonight and see where he is coming from, and to see if he is joining the Dungeon of Doom. And if so, Sting's name will join the top of the list.
Hogan has a penchant for talking about killing people because he does it when in TNA. During the Aces and Eights storyline, they have members of Aces and Eights tied up, and he's like, you don't kill him yet. He's like, don't kill him yet. I'm not done with him or something. I was like, Jesus Christ, Hogan. But yeah,
so bad. This was an awful, campy promo or video from Hogan, and I feel like no one is buying the bad guy act at this time.
95. This would have been bad in 85, but he's still doing it in 95.
Watch it. It's pretty bad, but it's kind of like an enjoyably bad. You're like, oh my god, dude.
That's just that's like what are they thinking? But it is very memorable. So.
But the first match is Ming with the Taskmaster versus Macho Man. So will Macho Man get him that head on a platter? To start the match, Macho Man's music plays, but he does not come out with the entrance ramp. He goes through the crowd and attacks Ming from behind to start the match. And of course, Kevin Sullivan tries to interfere at points through the match. But the finish of the match was Jimmy Hart jumps on the apron and Macho Man Irish whips Ming into Jimmy Hart's microphone, allowing Macho Man to hit the elbow drop for the win. And then right after the match, Shark comes out and attacks Macho Man. I'm not a shark, I'm a man. Can't wait till we get there. But the Lex Luger also comes out and joins in, and he injures Macho Man's arm on a ring post because now they're going to start working that arm a bit more.
Yeah, and Savage will be selling this arm for a long time.
Yes.
But he does legitimately hurt his arm.
They had to write in the arm injury thing. That's why they did that. But Lex Luger pretty much just attacks his arm repeatedly to injure it. So that's the opening segment. So Macho Man does get the win, but he doesn't. Would you say he got the head on a platter?
He sure did.
We'll go to Raw. The opening match for Raw is Hunter Hearst Helmsley versus Henry Godwinn. And of course, remember last week, Triple H put the slop on Henry Godwinn. Triple H goes to spray Godwinn with his little perfume bottle, but Godwinn pours the slop bucket on himself during the match, and Triple H does not want to wrestle a man dressed in slop, so he says, I'm out of here, pal, and Godwinn wins by count out. I just love how Triple H is like, I'm not wrestling you covered in slop.
I mean, I don't blame him. That's disgusting. They actually, and it actually looks like slop. I don't know what it actually is, but it looks like slop, and it looks disgusting.
But we'll go on to the second match for Nitro. It was Kensuke Sasaki versus Chris Benoit. And the winner of this match was Chris Benoit.
So they mentioned on commentary after he wins that he is the newest member of the Four Horsemen.
Yes, because I believe that was on the Saturday night show or Saturday show. He does become the next member of the Horsemen. So now they are at 4. You have Flair, Arn, Brian Pillman, and Chris Benoit. So then we'll go to the Raw side for a second match. It was Ahmed Johnson versus Jake Steele. And the winner was Ahmed Johnson. It was a squash match. He wins with a Pearl River Plunge.
Now, I have my notes that this is one of the promos I could not understand what he was saying.
Yeah, I have here. Here's exactly what I said. After the match, Vince McMahon interviews Ahmed, who says something.
I can't understand what he's saying here.
Yeah, I've listened to it multiple times. I can't really get it.
If someone ever needed a manager, it was Ahmed Johnson.
Mm-hmm. He would have benefited heavily from that.
Yep.
So then we'll go to the third match on Nitro. It was Eddie Guerrero versus Johnny B. Bad. I thought it was a pretty good match, and it ended with
Johnny B. Bad delivers bangers.
Yes, and Eddie Guerrero, of course. But this match ended with a time limit draw. After the match, the men shove each other because they're frustrated that no one could pick up the victory. WCW is really using Johnny B. Bad at this stage to fill in time because they know he can go 10, 15, 20 minutes. But this was a good match. Definitely the best match so far of both shows.
I never understood why Mark Marrow, got titles and stuff, but now watching him as Johnny B. Bad, I totally understand.
That's definitely one person whose opinion of that we've gotten a lot higher opinion of.
Lex Luger,
Surfer
Sting. Those are the top three so far. Of my opinion has changed.
Let's see. After this match, Bischoff announces Hogan versus Sting next week on Nitro, which that's big news. When I watched it, I was like, okay, we're getting this.
Yeah, we're getting into some prime time.
Hogan versus Sting. All right. After this match, we also have an in-ring interview. Mean Gene is in the ring with Jimmy Hart, Giant, and Taskmaster. Mean Gene tells Jimmy Hart that he scammed Hulk Hogan. And Jimmy Hart said that's the best compliment he's had. Then he says he and the Taskmaster took the WCW belt off of Hogan, and only one question he has left is what to do with all of his 200 Hulkamania jackets, since Hulkamania is dead.
People have been talking about killing Hulkamania for God knows how long.
All of them say that the Giant is going to be the favorite to win the title at World War III, and the Giant says when he wins the belt, he's going to be champion forever.
Forever.
This is when Giant's still really bad on the microphone. I don't think he did one of his nursery rhymes because I don't have it written down.
He's still not. Yeah, he's still not. You can fantasize or you can giant-size.
When he does do a rhyme, I do write down what it is so I can let everyone know what it is. Also, what was bad was Hogan, every time he has to reference the Giant, he always says that big, stinky Giant. But next for WWF, we have, I thought this was a fantastic segment. We have a sit-down interview. They're not in the same room, a split screen. And it's with Diesel and Bret Hart. This was a long segment. It's really good. Diesel was pretty intense the whole time. It really sells their match and builds up the intensity, I thought.
And I liked what Bret Hart did during the segment. He made it seem like sports-like because he said that he said he can't really hang with more technical wrestlers. So he was basically making it seem like his style of wrestling is superior in that. It just reminded me of UFC because UFC always does which fight and style better Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or whatever. But yeah, so I thought that was pretty good.
Let me hit the big points in here. After being asked about Bret Hart's catchphrase, Diesel says Bret Hart is one of the best, but he's pretty good and he's the champ, and right now he's better than Hart. Vince asked Bret Hart about losing the title to Backlund and all that. Bret Hart talks about losing the Backlund. He says he never gave up. He should have been champ from that point. He says the belt should have never been taken away from him. Diesel has his championship, and they reference some of their past encounters, Diesel and Bret Hart's past encounters, and the last one ended in a disqualification. And Bret Hart says he gave Diesel the toughest match of his career, and that's where he says what you're talking about, where he's pretty much saying the longer the match goes, it works more in his favor. Diesel's a big guy. He's not used to going that long, whereas Bret Hart is. So Bret Hart says if he can get it past that 20-minute mark, he thinks the match will go in his favor. Diesel says in response to that he doesn't get paid by the hour. He's going to look to beat Hart as fast as he can. Diesel ends it with saying he's jackknifed Hart 2 times, and both times outside forces have caused DQs. So essentially he's saying, I've beaten you twice. You can't beat me. But again, I thought this was a very good promo, or very good segment.
Yes. We were talking earlier about people, my opinion, changing. Bret Hart around this time, my opinion is changing on him.
I like him a lot better, don't you?
Yeah, he's doing better.
Yeah, when we get to 97, yeah, 97. That's good stuff.
Well, I mean, at least I've always known 97 was good.
Or we'll go back to WCW, and what they have next is Dean Malenko versus Sting. The difference in size between these two is huge.
This is a matchup I never knew happened, that Dean Malenko actually wrestled Sting. And yeah, I can see why most companies didn't push Dean Malenko as much as the internet wanted them to. Just the size difference of these two alone. Dean Malenko is very technical, very skilled, but I mean, you put him in the ring with the Undertaker, come
on. But Sting wins with a pin reversal of Malenko's Texas Cloverleaf. This was a pretty good match. We'll go ahead and wrap up WCW since they have what's next is a interview segment, in-ring interview with Sting. So Mean Gene asked him about leaving with Luger last week and facing Hogan next week. Sting says he has nothing against Hogan and doesn't know where Hogan's coming from, and he never dreamed that Hogan would come knocking on his door looking for him. I didn't like that Macho Man and Sting around this time were just like,
they just completely
bow down to Hogan. Yeah.
Complete kiss asses to Hogan.
Yeah.
And it's gets even worse later.
They essentially make it known that they themselves think Hogan is better than them, and I do not like that.
Nope.
Sting also says he doesn't want to do it, but he says he's going to let it slide with Hogan calling him a little dog, because last week Hogan called Macho Man and Sting and all those guys little dogs because he's doing that dark phase. He tells Hogan that in WCW he's the big dog, and he's looking forward to facing Hogan next week, but he doesn't see any reason why him and Hogan can't clear out their issues, and tells him again he'll see him next week because he's the big dog, remember? When I watched this, I was excited for the next week to see Sting and Hogan, so I think they did a pretty good job of building up this match.
Definitely made me, I was looking forward to watching the next episode.
Let's finish up Raw, where we have the third match of Raw, which is King Mabel versus a jobber. King Mabel wins. He wins with a belly-to-belly suplex. Nothing much to it, so that's a quick little deal there. So the main event for Raw will be Razor Ramon, who is the Intercontinental Champion, versus Psycho Sid with Ted DiBiase, and the 1-2-3 Kid is the ref. And what you know, with the 1-2-3 Kid having all these outbursts and issues with Razor Ramon, do you think he's going to help his friend Razor, or do you think maybe you wouldn't think he's gonna betray his friend, do you?
Nah, not even with the tension, man. He can't do it. Doesn't have it in him.
I do have a note here that the Sid Vicious does, or Psycho Sid, he dominates the majority of the match, and he does hit a clean kip up, which is always impressive for a man his size to do. Sid doesn't get enough credit as he should. I feel like he's a lot better wrestler than people made him out to be.
Yeah.
But for the majority of the match, the 1-2-3 Kid keeps it. He's a fair referee.
Fair down the middle.
Yep. There's a point in the match where Dean Douglas attacks Razor Ramon and beats him up on the outside of the ring while the 1-2-3 Kid is distracted. I do have a critique for Psycho Sid. He did put on a terrible looking camel clutch on Razor. Razor does reverse it into an electric chair drop, which it looks crazy. It was insane to see Sid Vicious, two tall guys like that, and then slamming Sid down. I thought it looked pretty great.
Mm-hmm.
Later on, Razor does get Psycho Sid up into Razor's edge. He has him like this, but 1-2-3 Kid pulls Psycho Sid down, and then Psycho Sid hits the powerbomb on Razor Ramon for the win. After the match, Ted DiBiase shoves money in Razor's mouth, and funnily enough, 1-2-3 Kid takes it out of his mouth and puts it in his pocket.
And it's Vince McMahon on commentary at that, and like this is like Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, he's acting like this is the betrayal of a century. So yes, 1-2-3 Kid did turn on Razor Ramon. He turned on his best friend. That is that for both the shows. Who would you give the victory to there?
This is another WCW victory.
I gotta disagree with you. I think WWF wins.
Wow.
The best segment of the night for both shows to me was the Diesel Bret Hart interview. I thought that was really good. And WCW had that awful Hogan thing, Jacob, you know. It's not much. I will give WWF this one. I also think the ending angle was pretty decent with the heel turn, which we did know it was coming, yes. But I do think it did make you want to see Razor Ramon get his revenge on 1-2-3 Kid. Sorry, man, we can't agree all the time. What did the people say, though?
The people said it is the exact same rating as last week. 2.6 to 2.
So WWF wins again?
Yes.
Fantastic. All right, so we'll move on to the next show, but the next one is going to be Survivor Series for WWF. It will take place on November 19th, 1995. The first match is the Underdogs, which consisted of Marty Jannetty, Spark Plug Holly, Hakushi, Barry Horowitz, versus the Body Donnas, Rod Radford, and Tom Pritchard. But then also 1-2-3 Kid with Ted DiBiase.
See Tom Pritchard here, and it's like, what?
Yeah.
Not much later, he zipped.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Interesting to see him with or near the Body Donnas because he's going to be joining them soon. The winners are 1-2-3 Kid's team. I don't know if they had a team name or not. I don't remember. But the final three were Jannetty versus Skip and 1-2-3 Kid. But near the end of the match, Psycho Sid comes out and he attacks Jannetty and slams his throat to the ropes while the ref is distracted. And the 1-2-3 Kid gets the win for his team.
I was so worried that they would have Jannetty like pin Sid. I was like, oh no, because I knew I had the feeling that Kid was gonna get the last pin. But I was like, oh man, please don't have Sid get pinned by Jannetty because Jannetty was last.
So we're trying to build some credibility to the 1, 2, 3 Kid. We don't want to make his heel turn fall flat. But again, as a match as a whole, you don't care about 99% or 90% of the people in this match. So not enough to be excited about.
Pretty much all this match was to set up Kid as a heel.
The second match, we'll quickly go over this, is Bertha Faye with Harvey Whippleman, Aja Kong,
Tomoko Watanabe, and Lioness Asuka versus Alundra Blaze, Kyoko Inoue, Saki Hasagawa, and Chipperita Asari. I will say, I think it's Chipperita. She, the one in the red, she hits a fantastic like corkscrew dive off the top rope.
This also had a Cesaro swing in it, so a Cesaro swing was happening even in 95. But the Bertha Faye's team wins, but Aja Kong eliminates the entire opposing team.
Bro, she dominated. Yeah, obviously they're building Aja Kong versus Alundra Blaze. And unfortunately, we don't get to see that.
No, because Alundra Blaze will be leaving here shortly after. So now Vince doesn't have to pretend he cares about women's wrestling, I guess.
It'll be a while before he cares about that again.
The next match is Bam Bam Bigelow versus Goldust. I haven't noted here. This is the first match where I noted, because remember I said Goldust wasn't playing into his sexual nature yet. I have it here that in this match he does start playing into it a little bit. So where he's starting to evolve into that Goldust that we're all familiar with. And Goldust actually dominated more of this match than I thought he would, because I would think he maybe would sneak a win on Bam Bam.
No, it was a pretty Bam Bam didn't get much offense. I think,
right. The finish of the match was Goldust wins with a bulldog.
Yeah, it was just the bulldog. I was like, oh no, I was like, oh jeez.
Yeah, I was like, okay, that's all right, bulldog, cool. And after the match, Bob Backlund's crazy ass goes after Bill Clinton.
He confronts Bill Clinton and then he like goes campaigning and he will randomly pop up on Raw every now and then, still campaigning.
But the next match is the Royals versus Team Dark Side. This is the first time we get to see the Undertaker's mask. The majority of this match was to build up the anticipation to see the Undertaker in the ring. So the Undertaker does not get in the ring for a long portion of the match. He pretty much eliminates everybody, right? He eliminates Jerry King Lawler, Isaac Yankem, and Triple H in a pretty quick order. And then Mabel hits a belly-to-belly on Undertaker, and he hits a leg drop. But then the Undertaker sits up, and Mabel runs away and gets counted out. Since, Mabel ran away, Sir Mo, you're going to have to take his punishment for him. You get chokeslammed.
It was basically a showcase for Undertaker. I did put that, I don't know for sure, but this might be the first time that Triple H was pinned.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, so I'm assuming this is his first pinfall loss. I will say, Sammy Vega in this match, he does hit what looks to be a rock bottom on Triple H. When Jerry Lawler power drives Vega, it looks like he hits the power driver, but then like Vega no-sells it as if he didn't get hit with the power driver. It looks like he tried to do the thing where he catches himself, like a lot of people have done, but he didn't, and it does look like he actually gets spiked. It's funny.
It just pops back up.
Yeah, it just like goes away.
But anyways, the Team Darkside wins 4-0. They sweep them. The only disappointing thing to me is that Mabel didn't get pinned, so it seems like they're continuing that whole deal, and I want it to end.
They want they're setting up that singles match.
So after that, we do go to a backstage interview with Bret Hart. Hart says he'd be lying if he said he wasn't worried about Diesel. He says he asks himself if he is the best ever, and says today they will find out. I hate this line when he said it. He said, Diesel, the truck stops here.
The truck stops here.
Diesel says if it wasn't for Bulldog, Hart would have been jackknifed and gone.
He basically reiterates what they said on Raw. It's like the longer the match goes on, it's bad for him, but he's big and strong, and he's going to try to beat him quick.
So then we go to our next match, which is Yokozuna, Owen Hart, Dean Douglas, and Razor Ramon versus Shawn Michaels, Ahmed Johnson, the British Bulldog, and Psycho Sid. And this is the first match, I believe, of Ahmed Johnson wrestling for WWF.
Yeah, I don't know for sure if he wrestled in like Superstars or something like, before he was pushed. But I at least know this is the pay-per-view debut. The one thing I will note is I had this Vince on commentary. He says, "We'll find out how bad Ahmed is." I'm like, "You are absolutely right, but not for the reasons you think."
No, not what you wanted, Vince, huh?
Nope.
There's a weird moment in the match where the British Bulldog tries to break up a pin, and he leg drops his teammate, Psycho Sid, and then Sid gets pinned.
Messed up the spot or what? It was odd.
Weird because it looks like he 100% intentionally leg dropped his teammate on purpose. It's really bad.
Sid then powerbombs Shawn Michaels in retaliation. Okay, so at one point in the match, they try to pin Yokozuna, but Bulldog, which is who is on the opposite team, breaks up the pin because I think he's aligned with Cornette and Yokozuna and all them. And so in retaliation, Ahmed HPO hit Bulldog and then knock him out the ring. And then Shawn Michaels hits the switching music on Yokozuna. And then Ahmed does the running splash for the win.
This match got confusing at points because, like I said, the Bulldog breaks up the pin.
Yeah,
his teammate was pinning somebody, but then he breaks up the pin because he was pinning his teammate that is with Cam Cornette because they're friends outside of this match, but that's really his opponent for the match. It gets kind of like...
I also think people who weren't legal were counted as for pins. I need to rewatch.
Yeah, a funny moment to me was we just saw the Bulldog try to break up the pin for his own team, but after the match, after his team wins, he tries to celebrate with them. So like, I'm like, hold on, you were just a guy who's trying to go against your team. Now you're celebrating. Like, I thought that was funny. They didn't really point it out, I don't think. So, but to me, that was funny. So now we go to the main event, and it is Bret Hart versus Diesel, who for the WWF Championship. And Diesel, of course, dominated the early portion of the match.
I like the beginning of this match because that starts with Diesel turning off the turnbuckle, and then Bret Hart sees him do it, and then Bret Hart turns around and he's like, "All right, I'll do it." He turns out he takes off the turnbuckle off his side too.
He's like,
and I thought it was funny that Earl Hebner just let them do it.
Yeah. I mean, what are you gonna do? Have you seen Earl Hebner? I'm not gonna stop him.
Yeah.
But as the match goes on, Hart, of course, like the technician he is, he starts going after Diesel's legs, and at some point he does get Diesel's legs around the ring post, and he ties him up with, I believe, the camera cord. And then at one point, and I believe that a lot of people have seen this spot before, where Hart is on the ring apron and Diesel shoves him off, and he falls head first into the table.
I got a clip of that, but yeah, that's a well-known spot.
He's like he goes like head first in there.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
But Bret Hart does win this match, so he is the new WWF champion. But he wins with a small package, so he doesn't hit with a sharpshooter or anything like that.
Well, it's funny.
But
it's interesting because it kind of pisses Diesel off because Diesel had Hart and the jackknife, or set up for the jackknife, and the Hart collapsed. And so Diesel just like stares at him, like he picks him up. I believe for a jackknife again because he's like, what's going on? You know, this guy's just completely done for. So he picks him up again for a jackknife, and that's when he gets rolled up. So Bret Hart played possum.
And Diesel does a great job. Right after the finish, he is slamming the mat. He is pissed.
Yes, this is the start of Diesel's heel turn.
And going with that, he does jackknife Bret Hart twice after the match. And he shoves the ref down, and then he raises his arm to end the show. But this is definitely a heel turn, no doubt about it. So that is the end of Survivor Series. Overall, I didn't think this was a great show. I did like that last match.
The main event did a lot of heavy lifting because pretty much all of these Survivor Series matches were not great.
They were random teams with like no build. So really, I think the only thing to check out is the main event. Everything else you can pass.
Sure.